Right, so apparently you just lost my audio at the end bit where I was just about summing up what the government's position on the ETLOS ruling is. But it just concludes by saying that this should also provide ample reassurance to all Ghana's investors that their rights and interests have been fully protected. Now, former Chief Executive of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Chachu Chikata, meanwhile says Saturday's ruling on Côte d'Ivoire's application for injunction in the maritime dispute with Ghana has put the Ivorians in an even more difficult position. He said although the substantive case is yet to be heard, the ruling which refused Côte d'Ivoire the provisional measures it sought from the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea has further strengthened Ghana's position and weakened that of Ivory Coast. He was speaking on Joy FM Super Morning Show.
Chachu Chikata said the Ghana-Côte d'Ivoire maritime boundary has been mutually recognized for decades. Côte d'Ivoire, he said, has not been able to present any evidence to contest the boundary, which has been recognized by the two countries for nearly 3 decades.
You've got to appreciate that the land borders of Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire were settled by mutual agreement at a certain point. And it is quite true that the offshore maritime boundary, however, was not part of that agreement. The formal agreement setting the land borders, into place did not cover the maritime area. So that's what creates now the issue in terms of the international law, because usually international law requires an agreement.
Although the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea at the weekend ruled that Ghana can continue working on the wells already dug, it prohibited the country from drilling any more wells. Chachu Chikata is, however, optimistic Ghana stands a better chance of winning the case against Ivory Coast.
Even though we are not yet at the merit stage, the tribunal is saying that the evidence that you bring to kind of invoke our power to prescribe provisional measures about the environment, it doesn't meet the test. So in respect of the marine environment, they were saying things like dead whales have been washed ashore on the shore of Ghana, and that means, it's something to do with the oil and gas activity. Absolutely, I mean, that one didn't even meet the plausibility.
They rejected that flatly. They rejected that flatly.
So I'm saying that quite a lot of Côte d'Ivoire's efforts before the tribunal were completely rejected. And that is why I'm saying that when you actually look at the totality of what happened in this application for provisional measures, Côte d'Ivoire is going to have an even harder time on the merits of the case, trying to show that they really have any merit. And I think that what the tribunal then did as a result of this finding is that some of the measures that they ordered are actually measures ordered to both sides. They say that both sides should take steps to preserve the marine environment, and both sides are going to have to submit reports, and both sides have a duty to cooperate so that this thing doesn't escalate. There is ongoing cooperation between Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. So on Ghana's side, in these application for provisional measures, there were very clear statements that Ghana is already actively in cooperation with Côte d'Ivoire and will continue to cooperate.
But private legal practitioner Samson Ladiayeni warns Ghana must not be complacent and gloat over the ruling on the injunction because there could be a tougher challenge ahead.
It is good to hear that the phase 1 developments as far as the 10 project is concerned are done, that we have 10 wells, is it? That's all that is needed for now to make that $5 billion project, US dollars project worth the while. That is good. If there will not be new drillings, that is fine. But when you hear information that suggests that there are machines on the way and that are intended to do further drilling for this same purpose, then you get a bit worried. And those who are arguing that may require further clarity from the court as to whether or not it is permissible or allowable for new, drillings to go on to complete the 10 field. I repeat what I said earlier, that if there ought to be any additional drilling to make good sense and make the judgment or the order operational, that is a consequential drilling and ought to be allowed. It ought not be hindered. However, I say, for as long as Ghana has had exclusive control, for over 4 decades, that means a big deal in both the application of the equidistance and equitable doctrines. So a lot will go for us. But since the tribunal, didn't deem their claim frivolous in the plausibility test, which I agree is a lower standard as compared to the establishment of a prima facie. But that gives me a sense that the guys appear to have a case, and that if we are not careful, we may end up with a final decision that mimics this preliminary one, which is sort of 50-50 depending on how you look at it. Nonetheless, I just hope, and I have a lot of hope that we will succeed.
Now, lawyer and energy expert Kwame Gentua has disagreed with people who feel the ruling of the International Court over the weekend in the maritime boundary dispute between Ghana and Ivory Coast indicates a win for Ghana. According to him, it is just an injunction that has been aborted. Going forward, he is advising that Ghana should secure its boundaries with Togo, which lies in the east, saying that this is the best time for this to happen.
If we are looking at the activity map of Ghana, it stretches from the Ivorian side, which is the west, right up to the Togo side, which is the east. When you look at the two boundaries, it has been laid in the same fashion. So, if it so happens that on the Togo side, there has been no legal agreement with regards to the boundary there, this is the time we should start looking at it. Because we do not want a situation where we are now going into the similar kind of situation we are having with Côte d'Ivoire. So I think it is time that we looked at the two boundaries and made sure that we secured the Togo side. The Ivorian side is in court at the present moment, and there's not much we can do till the hearing. But isn't it strange that the UN extended Ghana's maritime nautical miles by 200 southwards? On the same side of the Ivorians too, they did the same using this boundary line. Now, if the UN felt there was a dispute, why would they do that?
You think the ruling has some positives for Ghana, or the positives overweighs the negatives for Ghana?
The major crux of the ruling was to stop Tallow going ahead with exploration. They haven't been able to get that. But the way I see it in the terms of a case. You've got the prosecution and you've got the defense. And you've got to be balanced. It's a disputed area. The judges feel that in those areas that nothing can happen, let's have the status quo. Okay. And the status quo is that what they have itemized after granting the go-ahead for Tallow to go. And they gave reasons.
Well, there's been a lot of reportage about the ruling from the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, depending on how you look at it or where you stand on the matter. While some have described it as a victory for Ghana, others believe it is a loss, and these positions are not just being taken by media outlets here in Ghana. International media houses such as Bloomberg and Reuters could not agree whether it was a win or loss for Ghana. One thing we're sure of, though, is that government and the operator in the disputed 10 field, Tallow Oil, say they are happy with the ruling. Interestingly, the media in Ivory Coast are claiming victory too. Nadede Tete has been gleaning through some Ivorian articles on the issue and is in the studio now to share with us what she's found. Good evening to you, Nadede.
Good evening to you.
Right, so what's been reported in the Ivorian media?
Okay, so let's start with Jeune Afrique. Jeune Afrique is like a BBC of the Ivorians, and it says Abidjan remporte les premières rondes dans son différend maritime avec le Ghana. In simple terms, they're saying Abidjan wins first round in maritime disputes with Ghana, and you know, for them this is victory.
First round victory.
First round victory,
okay.
And they go on to say that the judge Boalem Bouguetia, he gave in to the request of Ivory Coast. So now let's go to Connexion Ivorienne, and they are saying litige maritime. La Côte d'Ivoire déboutée sur son recours en suspension des activités en cours du Ghana.
Which means?
This one says Ivory Coast loses its bid to get activities in the disputed area suspended. This is what they are reporting.
So there's this one other paper that's more like to the extreme. So it says that Ivory Coast loses its bid.
Yes. So
this paper says essentially Ivory Coast lost.
Lost, yes. And then this one got a lot of backlash from people.
Okay.
They were like, you are not probably an Ivorian. You are not patriotic.
Oh,
you don't, because they believe that it's actually Ghanaians who have actually lost in this particular case.
Okay.
Then we go to Abidjan.net, and this one says litige pétrolier, limitation de l'activité offshore du Ghana à la frontière avec la Côte d'Ivoire. And this one, what it says is Ghana's exploratory activities in the disputed area has been restricted. More like an accurate reportage there, because we have been told that we can go ahead with operations, but we can't drill new wells, and we should bear in mind safety as well when we are doing our operations.
All right, thank you very much, Nadede. I don't know how to. Okay, merci beaucoup, Nadede. Thank you very much for giving us what the Ivorian media has been saying about the maritime boundary dispute. But from oil to more oil, the Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors is calling for the establishment of a presidential commission of inquiry to probe allegations of bribery and collusion between officials of BOST and the chamber. Top officials at BOST have been accused of supporting the BDCs to rob the oil storage companies of petroleum products. Speaking at a news briefing on Monday, CEO of the chamber, Senyor Hosi, dismissed the allegations but said a probe must be instituted into the matter. Kwacha Freynuama has more.
According to CEO of the bulk oil distribution company, a selectively leaked tape is being circulated to create an impression of allegations of bribery and corruption against him. Senyor Hosi adds that the content of the tape has nothing to do with the ongoing controversy.
The selective voice recording being circulated was not in any way related to the BOST stock audit. There is no confession to the allegations associated and concocted in respect of the stock audit. There is none. The tape that's being circulated by WhatsApp and all that is a confidential recording of my testimony 3 years ago before a ministerial committee, the Agbenato Committee, set up to look into complaints lodged by petroleum service providers, which includes us, of extortion by some BOST officials in time past.
The BDCs are equally unhappy with the BOST MD's handling of the entire saga.
The actions of the managing director of BOST, as enumerated above, has totally crushed our confidence in his ability to ethically and fairly engage with the industry in his capacity as the managing director on issues pertaining to BDCs, BOST, as well as other players. The issues raised are very serious issues, and we humbly call on His Excellency the President and the Honorable Minister of Petroleum to kindly constitute an investigative committee to look into the issues of reconciliation and allegations of bribery, as well as the leakage of the confidential tape.
The chamber is also questioning the content of an audit report by accounting firm Ernst & Young into its operations.
The Ernst & Young draft report itself contained quite some inaccuracies. Some findings represented in the report tend to question the thoroughness of the work done so far and the depth of the engagement with key officials whose institutional memory may be required to establish and understand the facts. A case in point is the assertion that one company, Eco Petroleum, a BDC, had overdrawn balances in August and September of 2011. It will interest you, of 2010 rather, it will interest you to know that Eco Petroleum only commenced operating from BOST in January 2011. How can a BDC yet to commence operations overdraw on stocks?
Senor Hosi says no official of the bulk oil distribution company was contacted before the report was put together. Officials of BOST have, however, declined comment on the matter immediately. Kwache Afreniama for Joy News.
So they had declined comment on the matter immediately, but a board member of the bulk oil storage and transportation BOST, Kofi Adams, has since told Joy News they never set out to malign anybody, but indicated there was a need to set the record straight to save the nation's purse from further bleeding.
To the best of our knowledge, the report is accurate. Ernst & Young is not a company that does shoddy job, not at all. We don't know them for that. I know this report will, the BDCs will not be too happy because people have been talking about the activities. In the past, you hear workers in Tor demonstrating against BDCs, some workers in BOST also demonstrating. Anytime they have made this, you read their placards, they are saying something about BDC. No proper evidence has actually been adduced. But today, we are seeing these things come out. So they know very well that the country will in a way react in a certain way against them. And I can understand that this is some of the defense mechanisms that they are adopting. We are not out there to blackmail anybody, neither are we out there to cover anything, because the MD who has just taken over, Kwame Wadako, is doing so well to move the company from a loss-making company to a profit-making company. And the workers are very happy about activities going on there. The board is very, very supportive of activities to salvage a very important company. Its bleeding dates back to the 2005, 2006 and thereabout. But we will stop it. The management and board is determined to stop it and make BOST a very profitable company.
But Petroleum Minister Emmanuel Kofi Boakye says they have received the report and handed it over to the BNI for investigations to commence. He was speaking to my colleague Evan Spencer on Top Story.
When the report was given to us last week, the first thing we did was to refer it to the National Security Coordinator, who will then give it to the police, the CIB or IOCO, which one he feels more comfortable. So the case is now before them to investigate.
So what it is national security is now in charge of looking into the claims of fraud.
Yes.
I see. And that then clears the air. You have the Ernst & Young report already at the ministry?
Yes, we had it last week.
Because I've heard the BDC say that there is no final document anywhere, and what is in existence that has been reported is a draft document. What you have is a final document?
That's what we have.
And I guess it was submitted to you by the BOST?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so there was rather the deputy of the Petroleum Minister, Emmanuel Kofi Adams, who spoke to Joy News on Top Story. We're taking a break, but we have more stories coming up thereafter. Don't go away. The Public Relations Officer of the Electoral Commission has revealed that all stakeholders have agreed to the EC's upholding of the principle of no verification, no vote, but with exceptions. He also added that the committee's recommendation of November 7 as election date rather than December 7 is to make enough room for transitional team to prepare and usher in a new government. He was speaking to Joy News on the recommendations made by the committee tasked to make proposals for electoral reforms in Ghana.
The committee looked at the election date. You know, there was a proposal that holding the general elections on 7th December leaves the nation with too short a period for transition arrangements to be effectively done, and especially where the elections go into runoff. It becomes very, very difficult and tight for new governments to organize themselves properly to take the reins of government. And so the committee was of the opinion that if the elections could be held earlier, so that we'll have at least about a month or more for transition arrangements to be made, that will be very good for the country.
One of the committee's recommendations is to give the EC the power to prosecute people who defy electoral rules on election day.
The committee also recommends that the Electoral Commission itself must be given power to prosecute those who violate the electoral rules. It is the opinion of the committee that the police have a number of cases, criminal cases, go before the police every day. And so they may not have time to attend fully to these electoral issues. But if the commission that is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the elections are conducted according to law is given the mandate to prosecute, then we will see some more proactive prosecutions taking place.
But the General Secretary of the People's National Convention, Bernard Mona, says that will lead to a polarized system of justice delivery.
The issue of granting prosecution powers to the EC, I think that is an issue that we'll have to debate and to find out what informed the decision to want to give powers to the Electoral Commission to prosecute, because we think that it will vitiate justice, it will spread the wings of justice far too wide. Other institutions like Shraj, Yoko, and many others will want to be given similar powers, and at the end of the day, it will be difficult the system to handle.
Among other things, the committee also recommended that the Electoral Commission reviews but not create additional constituencies before the coming elections. The committee also recommended the EC create special voting period for media practitioners.
2 children have been killed in a fire in Kumasi. The fire said to have started as a tanker was discharging fuel on Saturday night. 2 cars were also burned in the fire. Erastus Asaridonko has more on this.
Around 9 and 10 p.m., we had this tanker vehicle trying to discharge diesel into a fuel station around Agrek Kokode on the Agrek and Zema Road. And so I got information that as it was trying to discharge, the nozzle got broken and fuel started spilling in large quantities. And, you know, this fuel station is surrounded by wooden structures where they cook and fry things to sell. So it caught fire. It had a huge blaze which started spreading where the fuel was spilling towards. So it took firemen close to 3 hours to bring the inferno under control. Now, this wooden, one of these wooden structures housed a widow and her children. 4 of them were in the room, I understand. 2 got out, and 2 of them, one 8 years and the other 6 years, got burnt to ashes. In fact, the mother of the children is inconsolable, and she is telling me that she got thrown out of her matrimonial home after the husband died, and she has been fighting this for some time now. But to get a place to stay, she had to erect this wooden structure to stay in with the children, and so that's how come they got to stay around the fuel station and got involved in this unfortunate incident. The police have been there all night. They conveyed the remains of the 2 children to the morgue, and the fire authorities have also been there. They are investigating the actual cause, official cause of the fire, but I've not seen so far the NPA and EPA yet. I understand that this morning they could be there to also take a look at what is happening. But there are similar fuel stations on this particular stretch. That is Agrek and Zema Road. About 2 of them I can count within the Kokode town, similar to this one, with improper facilities, not any structures you can count on. You know, the NPA has rules and they have structures that you need to conform to. I did not see proper laid out structures on the ground that could help prevent some of these unfortunate incidents.
The military high command has withdrawn soldiers who were on duty when a soldier shot and killed an unarmed man in his room during a patrol in Bumpurugu in the northern region. The troops were stationed in the area to enforce a 14-hour curfew following chieftaincy clashes that left 2 dead. The officers have already arrived in Accra to assist with investigations into the incident. Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Armed Forces, Colonel Eric Agrikwashe, told Joy News that as part of military regulations, the soldiers will be interrogated about the incident and handed over to the police if need be for criminal investigations.
I'm not holding brief for anybody. Well, I think that we as Ghanaians need to look at things and look at them dispassionately. There is a curfew. Definitely these people will not be happy with the curfew. And so the things they will say, that will let the people look back, so that at the end of the day, somebody says, okay, withdraw them from there. And then they will continue to misbehave. If the soldiers leave the place and there are killings and people are dying, you know the same Ghanaians who are going to complain that why is that the people are dying and nobody is doing anything about it. And when you go and there's a curfew, there's a lot of inconvenience people have to endure with a curfew. They don't want to endure that inconvenience. Meanwhile, they don't want to stop doing the things they are doing. So I think when you bring some of this report, please question them about their own actions. Because they will say all manner of things. Then at the end of the day, somebody takes the decision that, oh, okay, you will draw them from the place. So that they can stop misbehaving.
There's a storm brewing at the Agricultural Development Bank, with some staff blaming the management for what they describe as the bank's dwindling fortunes. The staff is also dissatisfied with the sale of the bank's head office on the Independence Avenue here in Accra. Over the weekend, the National Executive Committee of the union resolved to wear red armbands to drive home their displeasure. They have also lodged their complaints with the Union of Industry, Commerce and Finance Workers, UNICOF.
The staff is demanding explanation for what it describes as the bank's abysmal performance over the period spanning 2009 to 2014. The staff is also questioning what the management achieved with this 3-year strategic plan executed from 2010 to 2012. According to Joy News sources, the bank's enviable 5th position has dipped to about 20th on the league of table of the 28 banks in the country. The workers also argue that the management's bid to cut down on costs has only resulted in the reverse when it decided to outsource certain non-core banking services, including official drivers for the bank. The workers also want to know the underlying cause or causes for what they say is the topsy-turvy nature of the bank's profitability since 2009. ADB closed the 2014 year with 47.8 million cedis, including tax credit component of 13.1 million cedis. At the same time, the workers say the bank's non-performing loan ratio has soared to about 21.56% in 2014. The workers fear with over 600 million cedis in unrecovered loans and a low profitability, the bank will gradually be unable to perform its core mandate of lending. An aggrieved source tells Joy News the bank has sold its headquarters at the ADB house off the Independence Avenue for $10 million, only to rent at the Accra Financial Center for 1 million cedis a month minus utilities. Joy News sources says the staff is worried that this does not make any business sense, lamenting the move has the ability to run down the business. Joy News also gathered although ADB is paying this huge amount as monthly rent at the AFC, it has a 10% stake in the ownership of the structure. They are therefore seeking an immediate dissolution of the board, which they accuse of negligence. They are also calling for the removal of the managing director, Mr. Stephen Boakye, while a comprehensive forensic audit into the activities of the board and managing director commences immediately. They also require a reversal of the sale of the ADB house and a suspension of the initial public offering on the stock market. Kemini Nyamani Amano for Joy News.
We're taking a break now. We'll be back with business with Etonamse. It's now time for business, and Etonamse is here. I can imagine that you're still going to be talking quite a bit about the maritime boundary dispute between Ghana and Ivory Coast.
Yes. And Tullow Oil has released some, is telling people not to be very worried about the ruling, and
okay,
that
sure.
it's not going to
I'll have some inputs when you get to, after you've taken a couple of those stories. I'll join you in a bit.
All right, Israel. Time now for business. My name is Etonamse. Director of Operations at the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ASEP, has said that Ghana should seek for further directives on the maritime disputes ruling. Benjamin Boakye, who spoke with Joy Business, says the ruling, which directs Tullow Oil not to drill any further, is not favorable to the country's oil prospects.
Ghana may want to seek some further direction from the court, in even implementing some of the ruling to make sure that, I mean, if we are making a case for the investment that has been made on 10, for example, and further drilling is necessitated at some point to realize the object of that ruling, there is the need for them to drill. And I think the court should be willing to grant that relief to make sure that the drill, when it becomes relevant, for production to go on to justify the investment that they are making. Hess also needs the same business case to be made, because they have sunk so much money. It costs about $50 million to drill one well. So you're talking about $500 million investment on the field, and the cost is you can't continue. So what happens to their borrowings and interest on those borrowings? Who finances it?
Now, the Special Chamber of the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea in Hamburg has rejected Ivory Coast's request that Ghana be ordered to suspend all oil exploration and exploitation in the disputed zone, including the 10 project. Development work on the 10 project continues. The project is now over 55% complete, with all 10 of the wells expected to be online at first oil already drilled. The project remains within budget and on schedule, with first oil expected in mid-2016. ITLOS has ordered a number of provisional measures which both Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are required to comply with, including continued cooperation until ITLOS gives its decision on the maritime boundary dispute, which is expected in late 2017. Now, Tullow is not a party to the arbitration process and will not await a decision by the government of Ghana on how it will implement the provisional measures order. The Jubilee field is completely unaffected by this arbitration. And so this is very good news for investors. Tullow is saying that all is not lost.
Yes, all is not lost, indeed. And they've actually issued a release, and that release is going to be put on air in a bit, in which they're saying that indeed they're waiting on governments. Essentially, the ruling has been made, but the ruling is between Ghana and
Cote d'Ivoire.
And Cote d'Ivoire, and it was handed down to Ghana from ITLOS. Yeah. So essentially, they're expecting that the government of Ghana is going to instruct them and tell them that, okay, this is what the ruling means, and so we expect you to behave or operate accordingly, according to these guidelines. And that is what Tullow's release essentially is saying, that they are waiting for government to give them the directions as to exactly how they should operate. But one thing we can be, that gives us some hope, assurance and some relief is the fact that the shareholders of Tullow are quite comfortable with the ruling by voting, or because there's a rally of Tullow shares. There was a rally today of Tullow shares on the stock market.
But you agree that if you're not supposed to drill any further, it would affect the number of gallons of oil we expect per day.
Well, there's some technicalities to that. Tullow says essentially at this point, we are comfortable with the ruling. We're expecting that they would drill 10 wells, and they've drilled the 10 wells, and they think that the 10 wells will deliver first oil by next year, so they're comfortable with it.
Well, hopefully. Thank you, Ezra. Now, President John Dramani Mahama has assured advertisers their industry will be properly regulated once the Advertising Standards Authority bill is passed into law. He is also optimistic operationalizing the bill will help properly market the country and make it more attractive to investors. He was speaking at the opening of the International Advertising Association Leadership Conference 2015 in Accra.
Conference brought together stakeholders in the advertising industry across Africa to assess the implications for those businesses with interests in Africa within the wider advertising industry who wish to expand and flourish on the continent. Marketers and communication specialists will in the next 2 days do an in-depth analysis and understand the economic, social forces and trends facing consumers. For Ghanaian advertisers, although advertising is crucial to Ghana's development, the lack of the needed legislation to regulate the sector is worrying.
Africa is indeed rising, and those of us in advertising, brand building, marketing, sales, media, digital, and indeed everywhere in the business space, from finance through technology to operations, it's time to show the world that we are ready. I must confess, however, that our story is not all rosy. Ethics, standards and regulation generally within our industry across Africa leaves a lot to be desired. I take this opportunity to appeal directly to His Excellency to help us fast-track the passing of the Advertising Council Bill into law to enable us deal with the growing threat of charlatans who parade themselves as marketing communications professionals and ultimately to protect the consumer.
President John Mahama in his address indicated processes to ensure Ghana is well branded to attract investment have begun, including the consideration of the Advertising Standards Authority bill.
With all our best tourist sites, our culture and investment opportunities, we can always remain the world's best kept secret. But what use is a secret to anyone? Here in Ghana, we set up a Brand Ghana office to coordinate our national and international branding and marketing efforts. The office is currently being restructured to meet the new objectives of government and our new international focus. Through the instrumentality of the Advertising Association of Ghana, we're considering, and Joel, you'll be happy to hear that, an Advertising Council bill for parliamentary consideration. This bill, when passed into law, will help regulate the growing advertising industry.
The International Advertisers Association is meanwhile asking African countries to take advantage of the widespread use of mobile and social media to promote the consumer markets and attract interested businesses.
So that's it for business. My name is Etonamse. George Ado Jr. is next with sports.
Put it up here.
Gordon Atram has revealed he did not come back to play in the local league because of a Black Stars call-up. The 34-year-old who has returned to his boyhood club, Accra Great Olympics, after spending 17 years abroad, has been phenomenal in the league so far. Atram tells Joy Sports returning was not motivated by a Black Stars call-up, but insists he will take the opportunity if it comes.
Very easy for me to play Black Star. But I didn't join the local league especially because of Black Star, specific because of Black Star. I just joined the league to show Ghanaians that experienced players can play the league, because our league has gone down the drain and people are always watching Western football and not to concentrate on our league except Black Stars. So I joined the league with Olele, Tankwe and everybody to make our league exciting. Experienced players, we are talking about that they should come and join the league and play. Not that they are coming to sleep. If they are not ready to work, ready to cope, level themselves with the young ones, because facilities are not here. So you have to sacrifice. If you are not ready to sacrifice, believe me and level yourself to these boys, you can never make it. We have leveled ourselves. We take them as our brothers. Even though we have our everything, cars and whatever properties, we don't care. Our coach is here. 3 o'clock on the training, we are there. He pushes running. Sometimes even give us extra training to do. We train more than the young ones. So if an old one or experienced one who is coming and the people need to watch you, they want to see you, they want you to come and help the society, and you are not ready, believe me, the player must forget it.
Okay, so Olia goes through there for you. Let's do some boxing now. And president of Baby Jet Promotions, Asamoah Gyan, has exclusively told Joy Sports they're working to get a new WBA lightweight champion, Emmanuel Tego, another credible opponent to get him closer to a world title fight. Game Boy Tego knocked out Joribert de los Reyes in round 4 of the WBA International Lightweight Contest at the Crossport Stadium over the weekend. Asamoah Gyan, who was impressed with Tego's performance, says they are encouraged to push him to the top.
Yeah, we now are trying to push him to the next level. You know, from here we facing the interim world title, interim champion so far right now. So that is what we're looking at right now. We have to just go home and then talk to my team, and then we see how we take it from there. Yeah, it's all about sacrifice. As I said earlier, you know, you need to sacrifice before you get to the top. You know, I've got passion for boxing, you know, but we're trying to invest something. You know, you don't get anything easy at the beginning, but I think it's a good investment that we investing in the boy. You know, the boy has proved everybody he can be a world champion one day. So we just praying for him to be a world champion one day.
Now time to talk some tennis now, and losing finalist of the McDonald Open Championship, George Dako, beat defending champion Jeff Bakabase to win this year's title at the Crossport Stadium over the weekend. George Dako is now set for Africa's Davis Cup and tells Joy Sports he's excited to win after last year's heartbreak in the final.
I was a bit more relaxed, so I just going according to his weak point and just take the game. God willing, tomorrow I'll be traveling to Abuja to defend my world ATP ranking in Abuja, and it started on Monday. So I pray God I have to just fight hard and get more points from there. Then I come back to Ghana on the 10th May. Then maybe prepare myself for the national ranking, the next national ranking, and also to travel to Gabon on August. That's my preparation for this year. And also all of Can Games is around, Davis Cup 2 is around. So I don't have to sit down. I just have to fight hard and train more ahead. I came into the right season and right time because it started last year. And last year was a great tournament. After we organized a national ranking every year. Last year we played 4 national ranking, and this year we are playing 6 national ranking. So I think McDonald came to the right time. So I think it's helping us a bit. And also I think the next year I think Ghana will just go to the next level.
On that tennis note, we end sports. That'll be all for it. Certainly Israel will join us with some more. You have a good night.
Now, police in Kaswa are investigating one Paul Kumaho in Mamprobi for allegedly defrauding dozens of people to the tune of nearly 130,000 Ghana cedis. Joy News investigations revealed Paul Kumaho Jr. took monies ranging from 3,000 to 4,000 cedis from each of his victims with the promise of enlisting them into the military through a protocol list reserved for the ruling NDC party's bigwigs and top hierarchy of the military. But following months of waiting, Paul only managed to get some of his victims into a private security company instead of the military. He's currently in police custody and is set to appear in court on Wednesday, April 29. One of the victims has been speaking to Joy News' Felix Akoyam.
On Friday morning, around 10 a.m. at Obuasi, I was with my mom when my dad called and said, my mom should go and look for 3,000, that's 30 million. We are going to give it to one man called Mr. Paul. I brought 30 million to the man, but I don't know the amount that Adiza also brought to the man, but I guess it's 3,500, that's 35 million, that of Adiza. But what my dad and I brought to the man was 3,000.
Did you give this money in person to the man?
In person, at a place called Rollins Park.
Why were you giving this 3,000 cedis to Paul? What is his name again?
Mr. Paul Kumao.
Okay.
Paul Kumao, yes. We gave this 3,000 to him because he said he will fix me in the Ghana Armed Forces. He said the Armed Forces were taking only 500 people, and that 500 people, 200 have been shared.
So if I am getting you now, you're saying that this man took your money, yes, promised you that he was going to get you enlisted into the Ghana Army.
Ghana Armed Forces.
In the end, he got you I mean, a job with G4S, which is a security agency.
Yes, a security agency. So
so did you start working for G4S?
Yes, I worked for 2 months and I said, no, I can't do this work.
So now he's been arrested finally. What are you expecting?
Okay, now that he has been arrested, I am fighting for justice, and I want to alert the public that this thing is real. You see, when I completed SHS, I didn't know that it was even illegal to be enlisted by a senior soldier man, a senior military man. So how more a politician?
That'll be all for the bulletin. Before we go a quick run through our top stories, a former GMPC Chief Executive Chachu Chiketa says Saturday's ruling on Côte d'Ivoire's application for injunction in the ongoing maritime dispute with Ghana puts the Ivorians in an even more difficult position. Government has meanwhile welcomed the ruling, which it says carefully balances the rights of both Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. The Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors has called for the establishment of a presidential commission of inquiry to probe allegations of bribery and collusion between officials of BOST and the Chamber. That'll be all for the bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening. My name is Jolai.
This is Joy News Prime.